Good morning, everyone, or whatever time it is. Danziber here, I suppose, and this is devlog number 47 for my project. And this is really more of a devlog. Usually, I'm just showing off, like progress, but this actually gets into the like development aspect of it. And I guess first I will indeed show off the progress, and then, but it's not much to see. And then I'll get into the development part of it. Also, if you look here, hey, I added some mushrooms. Let's go ahead, add some people, get in combat. Now, things I want to show are, observe if Zemi does her multi-heal. It goes 1, 2, and it used to be everyone at the same time. Same thing if Kane does say his gun. Pew pew pew, 1, 2, 3. Which I'll get more into the significance of that in a second. Same thing when enemy attacks. Ah, they're there. It was green puff, green puff, green puff. And that was like the real main progress. And again, I'll say why in just a second. And while we're at it, let's have Kane blast these dudes. Alright, got him. Now, the reason why the Goom Shrooms using their multi-attack, and by the way, those animations were not final. The reason why it's significant is because, well, the past couple weeks it was a huge pain and I totally overhauled my combat code. And let's go back in time for a little bit. So imagine you're making a game. And then you come across, you're finally ready to implement combat. Let's go to battle. So the first thing you do is, the first thing I did is make it so that Zemi could attack with her staff. And then I made the, actually let's open this up. And then I made it so that like the monsters could attack. And then I made it so that Zemi could attack with the dagger in her right hand or her left hand or both hands, and so on and so forth. And each time I did this, and this is super bad practice, which is what took me so much work recently, is I would copy and paste the old code. So then my combat flow was something like player appears, they may or may not blur, they do their action. There may or may not be a visual on them. Like for example, when Kane did his blasting, there was a little animation on his gun. And there may or may not be a visual on the target. Like if Zemi were to cast a spell or whatever, there'd be like a little bubbly thing on them. If they take damage or are healed, a little text pop-up appears, and so on. So I had something of this nature for players, and I basically copied and pasted that and had it for enemies. And then depending on what the player was doing, like a range attack, melee attack, a technique, an item, a combo, and so on, I did lots of copying and pasting. And I had I didn't really have any naming conventions. So then what I did is I was about to have the enemies, like imagine an enemy is going, right? Then it was this little piece here, the visual on the target. So Goom Shroom attacks Zemi. If you look at the old, here, let me run this real quick. If you look at the Larvac attacking, it just whips its tail out. And there's no actual poof thing that appears. Zemi just flashes. But the Goom Shroom attacking, there's this green poof, right? So then I came across wanting a little puff to appear. And I basically realized, holy smokes, my code's an absolute mess. Time to fix this up. And that's exactly what I did. But to fix it up, and here's the actual advice part of it, all of this junk here, like how the flow of combat goes, these are my new naming conventions. This is who is targeting whom and what needs to play front to back. And by front to back, I mean like watch when Zemi casts a spell on herself, the casting animation by her hand appears like behind her sprite, like away from the camera. But the second animation that triggers, which is on her, appears in front of herself. It's like the depths at which the different sprites are drawn. And that's saying, you know, like back front kind of stuff. So none of this I actually had mapped out. Then this here, you know, like if you're using a weapon or an offensive technique, healing technique, I had all these different flags, and I didn't have any of this mapped out. I just like kind of just did it as I went along. And this was my like pre-version, and this was a tidied up version. So what I did is I had to have a huge overhaul for all my naming conventions, and then I had to change all the code appropriately, and I condensed all of the back here. So here I had player code, and then I copied and pasted it and made the mob code. That's all condensed into one thing now. So there's a pretty big. In fact, I'll show you real quick. Start turn stuff. Happy name. So this defines, you know, like 1 through, so there are 9 slots here. 1 through 5 are for the 5 party members, or up to 5 party members, and then 6, 7, 8, 9 are for the enemies. So we have what visual is going to play on the user, like the name of it. What frame is it going to play on? What sound is it going to play, and so on. And by making these, you know, like spread for the party and the mobs, there is some still differentiation between, you know, like whether the player is going or whether the mob is going in the definition part of it. But then after that is pretty much all, you know, there's one code that runs everything for them both. And that is that's the contents of my devlog. So the advice that I would give would be to this here, map out your naming conventions, map out the depths at which different animations are displayed, map out your turn flow, and then this is mapping out what action needs what flags. And that concludes my devlog. Let's do one last thing. Let's have Zemi cast Sawat.